My name is Travis May. I was incarcerated for 25 years, and at my 23rd and a half years when I was introduced to the victim impact class. When I first came into prison, programs were just something that you use to distract yourself from the norm. But as my behavior started to become more out of control and reflective of my lack of hope, the programs didn't serve me because I did not allow them to settle into my spirit. I was regretful for the crimes that I had committed based on the circumstance that I found myself in. And I thought I was remorseful and understanding of my actions on society until I met the victim impact group and the veil was pulled off. And I realized that I had a whole lot more work to do in order to understand what my actions had done to my community and to the people that was a victim.
The Victim Impact Program is a 13-week program for inmates, probationers, and parolees in Virginia. And it focuses on the definition of a victim, and then it moves into perpetrator rights versus victims' rights, and then it focuses on 10 different crime topics. And for each one of those crimes, they're learning about the 4 major impact areas that crime has on victims in the community. We're talking about financial, we're talking about physical, emotional or psychological, and then spiritual. And then when we tell them this program is for you, but it's not about you, that's really, they're like, wait, what? That's intriguing for them, and they want to hear more, and they want to figure out, like, how is that going to play out? Today we're out at Nottoway Correctional Center and we're doing an informational session for the Victim Impact Program. So this is basically just a 1 to 1.5 hour session where we're doing little teasers and small activities to gain a level of interest with the population on the topic of victimology and how crime impacts people. The goal of the information session is really just to kind of grab their attention. So we're maybe like a shock and awe moment. So we're looking at statistics, we're looking at different numbers of things that are happening within their own localities that they came from or around the state. And we're trying to drum up that interest and start the conversation of how crime impacts victims in the community. And then we're pulling from that group and creating that victim impact group that are going to move forward and engage in the program. So I want to just kind of open the floor up. What was it that interested you guys about the victim impact program?
Of change, you know, it requires going into the unknown, and sometimes that can be a nervous feel. But when you understand that going through this process makes you a better person and it can enhance your understanding of something, it's okay to go beyond the not knowing and the nervousness, because you understand that on the other end it's going to make you a better person or help you understand something to a greater degree.
Our agency is very focused on evidence-based practices and using data to move forward and driving decision making using that data. And so what we do with the Victim Impact Program, knowing that the inmates have their own personal experiences and what maybe their family or friends have dealt with that they've heard about or what they've seen on the news media, but they really have no idea of the actual numbers and the data right here in Virginia.
So within your folder, you have a color, pink, green, or purple, and it's going to have a crime type on each one of these sheets of paper. So homicide, sex offenses, robbery, burglary, whatever is going to be on those sheets. Then the yellow are going to be numbers, okay? These numbers represent the amount of reported crimes for 1 year in Virginia. What we want you to do is match up the number with the crime. We'll see who can win. We'll do a little competition, all right?
Fraud. When you got assault.
Remember, gentlemen, we're talking about
assault is probably high because you got all kind of assaults.
I think that's the 94.
You think this one is 94?
Yes.
All right, guys, you got about 2 more minutes to figure out your first round, and then I'm gonna come by and I'm gonna take up the ones that are incorrect and give you another 2 minutes to change your mind.
We're using different activities and getting their opinion and hearing the different conversations that they're having. We're matching, asking them to match the reported crimes for 1 year in Virginia for robbery or homicide or sexual assaults. You ready for me to butcher it?
Yeah.
No. Nope. None of yours are right. None of them are right. Nope. Nope. No to this one and this one. No to that one. That's correct. That's correct. Nope. And nope.
We got 3, right?
So you got 3.
Okay.
Listening to the conversations and then exposing them to the actual data, they're speechless. I mean, they really are. They're like, that can't be.
Yeah, so here's your answer. So since these are good colors, we're gonna have you guys put these in the middle.
Some of them will do a little bit of research before we go into the class to see where some of them are from, and we'll pull numbers from those jurisdictions, and that sticks with them. And it's intriguing to them, and they're like, wait a minute, no way.
Talk to me about these numbers. What surprised you, or maybe didn't surprise you, about what you saw with these numbers?
I encountered more than what I expected. I actually confronted more knowledge about the crimes. I saw numbers that I didn't anticipate. I heard stories from the other guys that I didn't know it weighed on them to the degree that it did, which affected my own perception of the impact that my crimes may have had on others.
This is brand new information to them. They haven't thought about these sorts of things or seen any of these facts and figures. So all of a sudden, it is a challenge to the way they've been thinking about things up until now, to what their preconceived notions were about maybe what crime looked like in the community or how people were being impacted, or maybe not impacted. They aren't thinking that the impact of their crimes is as wide as it is. So when they're able to look at it from more of a bird's eye view and realize how crime is ravaging their communities, that's something that's very eye-opening for them. And then all of a sudden they take a look at themselves and realize, what role did I play in that?
I was shocked with some of the numbers, extremely shocked with some of the numbers. Some of the guys that were in our group were shocked completely.
Some of them will say, well, I don't have a victim because, I burglarized a property. They don't have a point of reference to understand that whether they're present or not, there are impacts for that harm that they've caused.
Like, how many times have you heard or even said yourself, well, at least I didn't do this, or at least I'm not this? And what you see with this program is that no matter what the crime is, people can be impacted very much the same.
Whether we're talking about a violent assault or a property crime, that sense of safety being lost, it changes that crime victim and even those closest to them, and they have to figure out a new normal.
If somebody's under a lot of stress, what are some ways that physically manifests in their bodies? High blood pressure, what else?
I never put together like a robbery or someone breaking into a house, actually considering a physical effect off of it, or the spiritual and emotional effects off it. I get somewhat emotional because of certain things that happen. Now you're worried about locking your stuff up more, you're doing that. But as a spiritual, why did this happen to me?
Then they build on that, okay, now I understand what we're doing and what we're going to be focusing on, and they're building and growing. And so you see that level of growth as we move forward through the weeks.
Sometimes I think that we're victims ourselves of our own acts.
So you probably need to reevaluate the term that you're using. Victim implies they had no choice. This thing happened to them and they're forced to deal with it. So look at it that way. So where you fit in, what other word could describe that?
It was so difficult, those first couple of classes, for us to step outside of the awareness that we were the victims of a circumstance. And up until that point, I had not really understood the impact that my actions had on others.
This program is for you, but it's not about you. And that's what makes it different than a lot of the other programs that you guys experience while you're incarcerated. A lot of them are, how can I, improve social behaviors and cognitive behavioral, and how can I be a better person, and, how can I be marketable when I get back out into the job world. This program is about the victim, and that's what you'll be learning about. So it's for you to learn how you've impacted others, but it's not about you.
the more that you started to highlight the true definition of a victim, and you started to give us different references of what victimhood looked like, I think for the first time, a lot of us became present with our crimes. I don't think up until that point, any of us had been present with the offense that we had committed and the true ripple effect that was present.
It's thought-provoking to see how my crime may have affected people that I didn't know that it affected directly, like what you call the ripple effect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like it's going to be an eye-opening experience.
Victims are people who didn't choose to go through what they went through. I can't see myself as a victim. I have to understand that they are the victim, and that this program is going to allow me to really understand that in the fullness.
Whether they've been incarcerated for 2 years or 20 years, they're now able to see the true level of harm that they caused and figuring out a new way to move forward.
I talked about personal growth in the beginning, and what you said about this being for us but not about us. This is a different direction for me, so I'm excited.
So never before have their thoughts, beliefs, and mindsets about what is a victim or victimization, it hasn't been challenged before. So their idea of a victim is very different than what maybe the program is going to teach them about what is a victim.
I feel like I've gotten to a point to come to this program through a sense of like a maturity thing. I did all the requisites as far as thinking for a change and anger management. So I'm in like a positive part of my rehabilitation.
Someone broke into my neighbor's house and raped her after she had gone to bed. She's not the same person I used to know and has recently put her house up for sale. 4 people are sexually assaulted every week in Chesapeake.
A drug deal went bad in the apartment next door. My daughter was hit by a stray bullet while she was doing her homework. 1 person is murdered in Norfolk every 5 days.
My cousin got a job working at a dry cleaners to pay for college. Some guys with a gun came in and one choked her while they demanded that she open the register. She quit the job, so now she had to quit school. 1 violent crime occurs in Newport News every 2 hours.
My daughter and a friend were cornered and groped at a high school football game by some older boys. 6 people are sexually assaulted every week in Fairfax.
So I know for me, hearing the frequency brings it a little bit closer to home, makes it feel a little bit more real in a way that maybe big numbers don't. What are some thoughts to some of the statements that you all had?
There's a story behind each crime, you know.
It's a big difference when you look at it in that context. Like, there's a person literally represented by each one of those numbers. So
We've been in here about 50 minutes. So I know mine was someone is assaulted, raped, or killed every 5 minutes, so that would have happened 10 times in the time that we've been here together, just in Virginia.
And I guess society could probably see that, you know, that there's blinders put on in general to victimology.
Yeah, victimization is a taboo topic. Nobody wants to talk about it. That's like domestic violence. But how can people learn how they've impacted others if we don't talk about it?
It's okay not to be okay, because that's what grief, pain, and fear is. I feel terrible about what I did, but I don't know how they feel about it. So this kind of is a building thing for me.
My journey of redemption started at the point of understanding that I did not know the actual impact of my crimes. Even being 23 and a half years removed, my understanding of what I did to others was not workable until this program.
The inmates are now, and the probationers and parolees that we work with, are now being exposed to that level of harm and the chronic and acute effects of it, and it's mind-blowing for them, and they don't like to hear it, and it makes them feel things and vulnerability and guilt and a lot of different things that they haven't really internalized throughout their incarceration because they've never been exposed to that level of impact.
That's the process of change, I believe, and the process of growth, and I'm open to exposing that change to the people that I care about and to the people that I'm accountable to.
There's never such thing as too much insight or knowledge or wisdom you develop from that information and emotion.
Our goal is for them to build a sense of empathy for people and for how their actions impact others, and also a sense of accountability. How do they build and move forward so that when they're released, or even starting right now today, how can they live their lives differently so that they aren't harming people and having that same negative impact on people?
I think we all can look back at things we've done, we wish we had done differently, we wish we hadn't done or hadn't said, and we don't have any way to go back and change that. The only thing we can change is what we do going forward and the choices that we make going forward. Do we want to do things differently than maybe we did before? And all of us can look in the mirror and have regrets.
When you come into this system, and you're coming off the streets, committing crimes, it's a lot of things we don't know. We don't know the other side. We stand before court, we're sentenced, we come to prison. And we really don't have any idea of what our victims have gone through. This program gives us a lot of knowledge about what a victim goes through.
Another important part of the program is bringing in a guest speaker, so we'll try to bring in a crime victim to come in and share their story.
That's kind of the heart of the program, and if there's not that crime victim that comes in to speak, you'll be seeing a video. So there'll be just a small little clip of a crime victim of that crime top for that week that's talking about how that crime has impacted them.
We have a great group of volunteer victim guest speakers that come into our facilities or our probation districts to share their story. It's really the centerpiece, like the heartbeat of the program.
As you go on into the class and continue to learn more and more about it, by the time someone comes in and speaks to you about it, you will have questions. Because, just being able to sit there and listen to her talk about her situation, man, it really gets you emotional.
Really bringing in that person, allowing that interaction to occur, that's what makes it real for them in a way that nothing else can, in a way that I as a facilitator wouldn't be able to.
Sometimes you look at what they go through and you say, man, what can you do to fix that? What she wanted most was that you never do it again.
So just to introduce, this is Unit 9 on child abuse and neglect. What is child abuse and neglect? There are 4 main types of child maltreatment: physical abuse, child neglect, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. So the consequences of child abuse and neglect can be serious and long-term. Abused and neglected children may experience a lifelong pattern of depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, inappropriate or troubled relationships, or a lack of empathy. So today we have the unique experience of being able to hear someone share their story.
Thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to get to be here, albeit a little nervous. I'm a child abuse survivor.
Feeling that vulnerability, it makes you human again. Instead of being defined by the crime, you're a human being again. You're no longer a rape victim. You're no longer a gang victim. You are now a woman standing in front of you. You're no longer a criminal, but you're a man standing in front of you. And this is my soul to bear.
Both of my parents were abusive as I grew up. The abuse started, the earliest memory I have was my father. I was about 3 years old. He would tell my mom that he was checking on me during thunderstorms. To the best of my knowledge, my mom didn't know what was going on, what was taking place. My dad had told me that he loved me so much. It was a special relationship that we had. So if I ever told my mom, she would be really hurt and she would be angry, and so he was trying to protect me from her wrath. The last memory I have, concrete memory I have, I was about 8 years old, and it was after that my dad changed jobs and he was introduced to cocaine. So from there he became violent. My mom did the best that she could at that point. She was working 2.5 jobs just trying to make ends meet. She had a really hard go of it, so I give her a lot of grace for the things that she did later on. I'm sorry.
At some point, you have to be vulnerable and you have to let people in. And when you are addressing these hard issues and you're going out in the world and you're working and you're going to school or whatever, you're gonna interact with people, and having interactions with jerks, maybe it gives you a moment to be like, I have no idea what they're going through. They could have had something awful happen.
But by now, my mom started mixing the prescription drugs with the alcohol. And that changes people. And that's when she became extremely violent and became paranoid and started threatening me.
Just take that moment to stop and think and be like, okay, I'm not going to hold you forever accountable for the ugly that you just gave me. I'm going to give you a moment and give you grace, because grace was given to me because this person came in, bared their soul to the world. I can do better. Let's do better. We all want to do better.
So during thunderstorms, I am drawn back to my bedroom as a little girl. And you're listening to the sounds. I hear the sounds that aren't there. So I feel a little crazy. It's auditory hallucinations and the flashbacks. And those are the main, that qualifies as PTSD.
There were a couple of hard moments that made me take a step back and be like, okay, so not only are these real people that I'm speaking with and they had real things, but these are people that probably engaged in a lot of what happened to me. And I feel like that there was kind of a veil over that until I had that particular moment of I'm not just speaking to this level of criminal, but I'm speaking to people that probably had a direct relationship with something very similar.
All of this happened decades ago, and I still get like this. And I still get overwhelmed, and I still get just swimming and spinning in all of this. And I don't know if this will ever end, if it'll ever get easier or get better. But this is me, this is my life, and this is a direct result of everything that took place all those years ago.
But we're all human, and we all make mistakes, and we can't learn from those and grow from those until we have these conversations. And they're hard conversations, they're ugly and they're uncomfortable, but they're so necessary for growth and character development.
I mean, I knew this was an intense situation, this intense program. I heard it was intense. I just didn't know it was this intense. And I mean, it's very emotional for me, I'm being honest.
Why you don't feel like you're a super person, a strong person, when you're in your 40s now and have started when you was 3?
I don't feel that at all. It's the chronic abuse over the years, being told that I was worthless, being told that I was nothing. It's hard. All these years later, one day maybe I'll make myself a cape and feel like a superhero, but
absolutely. You just gotta look at all your accomplishments and, like you said, just celebrate the small victories that you had.
So don't think that just because you haven't built yourself for it, you feel like that you haven't built yourself for it. Just to sit around us and to open up like that is steps every day. And you've been doing that for the last 3 years. So, you know what I mean? I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
First and foremost, I want to
say I commended her for being such a brave individual and having so much resilience to be able to even speak about her story. All of the things that I was learning in the class, in the Victims Impact class, about the ripple effect, about how people are affected emotionally, how they are affected financially, how they affected spiritually, all of these different aspects, it was in her story. So for her to actually say it, it kind of like magnified everything that we had already went over. I see the cape, you know, like he was saying, like I see the cape, and you know, and I done met people in prison, like I done met people in prison that have been sexually abused, and these are things that they struggle with and things that they deal with. So they just don't know how to deal with it, and they really don't. They don't, and it comes out in different ways, right? So like I said, it's something I want to get behind 100%. So
to have that conversation, have that open doorway to this is what happened, and then the questions that come from it and the dialogue, and I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Is this therapeutic for you?
Yes, hugely. I will be so like flying on cloud 9 when I leave here. It's ridiculous. I just feel I feel free.
Have you forgiven your parents?
It's never ending. It's never ending. It's always a process. So that's the best way that I can kind of put my hands around it and hold it. Is like, yes, most times, but then there are other times where I'm like, no, I'm angry, and I'm going to be angry with you today, and that's okay.
It touched me very deeply emotionally, first and foremost, because, you know, me already having victims in my crime. So for me, it was to see her and hear her story and all the things that go on, regardless of what the crime may be, you still see those same effects, and how those same things with the finances and all of those things is there, it's still present.
As a survivor, I want to make sure that I am giving everything I've got to try and prevent further victimization. If just one can hear, okay, let me do something better, let me be different, let me change the cycle, let me break the cycle that I have been stuck in forever, it's worth it.
The Victim Impact Program is an opportunity for victims to have a voice, and for many of them, they feel like that voice was taken away as soon as the crime happened. And so this is their opportunity to not only give back, but to share that level of impact and, you know, help with the trajectory of that inmate's life so that they don't go out and harm someone else.
My name is Carrie, and I'm here today to talk to you all about probably one of the more uncomfortable topics that you all will broach. I went to the door, I opened the door, I didn't look in the peephole, I didn't leave the chain on, I just opened the door. Gentleman there, blue polo shirt, blue ball cap, and a gun in his hand. He comes in, points the gun at my head, and leads me to my bedroom.
Being a part of this program has been very healing for me. This is a way for me to make a difference in a positive way out of something that was very negative in my life.
He had the gun to my head pretty much the whole time. All I can think about was, I'm gonna die.
Crime that's committed takes power away from victims, takes choice away from victims through no faults of their own, and that the perpetrators are making those decisions that have a ripple effect across people's lives for decades to come.
When I got home and we got to the front door, my front door was covered in fingerprint dust. So I start scrubbing doors, walls, and the whole time I'm cleaning it up, I think about flashes of what he was doing and what we were doing at those points of time where I was cleaning it up. This day was just kind of a blur, a nightmare, you know? And it was a day that I had zero control over.
By looking at it from every perspective, from every different type of crime, they see the similarities of how negative actions cause negative consequences. In the 2-year period between when this happened and when he was convicted,
I can't tell you how many times I threw up. When somebody knocks on my door, all of the emotions that I felt that day, they come back in one big wave. I can't stop it. It's changed who I am. While I'm speaking and engaging with them, you literally can see it working in real time.
You had your story, man, just melted my heart. Tears, I mean, and you're here to talk about it. You know, you moved forward, but you did it in a cautious way to protect your children, protect yourself.
Yeah, we come to prison, it's hard on our families a little bit, but it affects y'all a hell of a lot more than it does us. I mean, I'm in prison, I got 3 hots and a cot, period. You know, you can't hardly eat certain food. You can't go on an elevator with somebody on the elevator. So, I mean, I feel sorry for everything that's happened to you. I really do.
You have certain things, anger management, thinking for a change, and productive citizenship. Well, this should be added to it because it makes you see things, and like when you get out, that you would stop and think, hey, how many people is this affecting if I do this or that?
This right here makes you think about everything and think about other people before you think about yourself.
If I would have gotten this course before I was incarcerated, I wouldn't be incarcerated today. Because I would have been able to think about what my responsibilities towards to my family and the ripple effect of the community and so forth.
And speaking to the inmates and seeing that they are responding to this program, that they're getting something from it, is extremely satisfying for me. And if I can make a difference in that way, I'll do it every day.
You know, some people got to be willing to make a change in themselves first before this right here really help you. But everybody needs to go through this right here.
It's a program unlike any other, and it has impact like none other.
It's the best class I've had, and I've been locked up over 30 years.
Really made up that tomorrow.
Our participants take what they've learned home to their communities. They are mentoring other people. They're even mentoring people inside the facilities. You'll hear them talk about how, you know, I was in class and I learned something today, and I go in the pod and I tell somebody else who tells somebody else. The next thing you know, the waiting list for the program is huge.
This makes you think and have empathy. You know, hey, the conscience involved. And it ain't just for what you've done, it's for others also. You know, to have them, to speak to them on that degree. This class enables us to make them see what we see through y'all, through the victim.
I want it to go out. I want it to have babies and butterflies across the rest of the state and across the rest of the country, because it is such a fantastic program that helps people be better.
The person that I was when I committed my crimes was somebody that was very self-centered, because my life was easily made to see myself as the victim. Because of my upbringing, my father was in prison, my mother was on drugs. We were just a victim of circumstance. And that was the attitude that I had as a young child, that I was a victim of circumstance. I wanted to make others the victim of circumstance because it was the only power that I had in a powerless situation. I didn't have a sense of worth. I didn't have a direction. The turnaround came when I did not understand how I was continuing to find ways to make my life worse. How was I subjecting my family to continued madness, and I wanted to represent something different. And to do that, I utilized the programs of the institution to try to gain a greater understanding of myself, so then I could accomplish being something other than what I was known for.
How do we expect inmates to know what the impact of their crime has been if we don't tell them? For me, 35 years after a sexual assault, I still have impacts from that every day. When you share that with inmates, that what happened to me was so long ago, it rings a bell with them, that this is not just over and done with, it has long-lasting impacts.
It's amazing to see smiles on the faces of people who have the strength to walk into a facility and share probably one of the worst days of their lives to try and help change an inmate's life, to change the trajectory and the path that they're going to take once they're released from prison.
I had an inmate come up to me after I spoke at Augusta, and he said to me, I don't know if anybody's ever apologized to you for what happened, but I can't apologize to my victim because I killed her, so I'm really sorry. And you know, the success for me is that nobody ever apologized to me for what happened. Nobody ever said I'm sorry. And for somebody to show that much humility, to apologize in a way that he never had to, right? That's a huge success. That's really intimate conversation on a very human level.
It made me emotional in a way to realize that I had brought this type of suffering to another human being. And yes, but it was sobering in that effect, and it started a process of reflection, I think, that connected me to my humanity. The minute that you open your heart to the true experience of the impact of your actions, the more you feel the impact of your actions.
You see a level of healing and growth on both sides, which wasn't anticipated, but it's really a beautiful thing to watch. The program is really expanded because of that. You're humanizing it. You're bringing together the two sides, and it's a beautiful interaction.
You said that you believe that people do change. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people in society who don't believe that. And us in prison, we're constantly faced with that stigma. What advice would you give incarcerated people to try to overcome that stigma?
All you have is your voice, and all you have is your experience and your history and your past. And that's what you have to make a difference with. You're the one who's making those decisions when you get out of here and how your life is going to be. And I think that it can be an extraordinary life.
Time does not minimize the suffering that a victim feels. Time does not often take away the pain or the fear that is still present after a crime has been committed. Like, that type of information I did not have. I was not working in that type of information. And to realize that even 23 and a half years removed, there are people potentially walking around that are still suffering from an action that I committed was too much for me at the time to understand and process. That's why I said it was very emotional in its impact and effect on me.
So this week we are talking about homicide, and I'm going to allow Ms. Hasty Martin to take over to introduce the guest that we have here with us today.
This story represents the ripple effect to the max, because our presenter, Michael over here, he was not even born at the time of the crime.
I embraced this situation with an open mind and an open heart. Today is a blessing that I get to speak to you guys. I'm honored and I'm grateful. Tomorrow, February 2nd, will be 44 years when my father and my great uncle were murdered. Being here today is just, it's special for me because I get to share my story with all of you, and if I have just give you a little bit of inspiration or anything that I can help you with, that's what it's all about. My Uncle Dennis meets his girlfriend's father, and instantly, the vibe was pretty bad. He didn't like my uncle at all. Her father had sexually assaulted her many, many times while she was a teenager in high school. Looking back at it, he was jealous of her relationship with my uncle.
It's important for victims to come in and speak to these inmates because it gives them a physical perspective to look at. So we can go through and look at these books all day long and go over what it's like to be a victim to give them a better understanding. But when they get to hear it from an actual victim, it resonates better with them.
So he gets out and he sees the shotgun and he holds his hands up in the air and he says, "Please God, don't shoot." And he shoots my dad. My mom's sitting in the middle. It was an old Pontiac Bonneville. She was sitting in the middle of the front seat. And she said, "I had just literally ducked and he shot through the windshield." In that time, my dad was trying to get up and he shot my dad again in the back and killed him. When they found him, he had 2 balls of grass in his hand where he was crawling on the ground.
When you see someone come in and they have to go back and remember the trauma, the atrocities that they've experienced through being victimized. They have to feel the hurt again, just to tell someone not to hurt again.
Mom said, I got out of the car, I hid under the car, and granted, she was 5 months or 6 months pregnant with me at the time. She said, I was in survival mode. She said, I didn't know what to do. She said, that's the only thing I could think of. She said, I crawled as far as I could and just played dead, Michael. There was nothing else I could do.
It has a way of extending itself to you. You see the real. And it jolts you, like, maybe this is not the actual victim that I cause hurt or harm to, but my victim could be experiencing the exact same thing. So you have to take accountability.
It's not a lie, I was not born yet, but I was there that night. I mean, any way you look at it, I was there. I experienced what my mom was feeling, her emotions. I can't even imagine. I grew up without a dad. I mean, I never had a dad that I could throw football or baseball or work on a Ford Mustang. I don't know. I never had any of that. I need things to change for my family, but I also needed things to change for myself because I want to help people. I want to be there for victim rights. I want to be there for homicide victims, and I want to be there for gunshot victims.
When we get that victim speaker out here, it just opens up a whole new avenue for them, and that's really when you see that magic happening. It creates an atmosphere of openness.
I came here, I didn't expect, like I said, I didn't expect this group. I didn't know we was talking about this stuff. And over the years, I've thought, because, my victim is deceased. And the only person I know that she had was a son and a daughter-in-law. I think about the impact. The impact that my choice that night had on him and anybody else along the line that I don't know. And to hear your story, I resonate so much with your childhood because, I lost my dad. He chose to leave, but I grew up with the same questions. So I didn't plan to relate to you, but I relate to you, and the choices you made in your life. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to see you here. Thank you for sharing.
When you have a person come inside here and they're willing to be vulnerable in front of you, they're willing to show you their raw emotion, it encourages you to bring yours. It creates an environment where you can really open yourself to the necessary components where change can insert itself for real. It's easy to walk away doing the same things as long as you don't see the results of what you've done. And I think that as you continue to come and make us aware of the side that we sometimes don't look at while we're in here, you can make that difference that the books don't necessarily give. Your presence is necessary. Just know that this is a moment that we share now, but it's also one that's going to be shared throughout our lives with the people that we encounter and through the choices that we choose to make as we go beyond this moment. So thank you all for the program, and thank you all for the advice and the information that you bring to us. So that's what I say.
I'm locked up for murder. And the individual that was convicted of killing had an unborn child at the time. And for a lot of years, I've wondered about the individual. How did they fare? How did they turn out? And you just put a face on the emotions and the things that a person go through. So I appreciate that.
As long as I can help one, that's what it's all about for me. If you ever need anything, reach out. Just being there and helping and inspire at least one person.
If they get the opportunity to go back into society, I just want them to learn everything that from this program that they can and take that into consideration with every choice that they make on the street.
I know for certain that I would not be able to extract the joy and the freedom that I feel now had I not been able to truly start my process of redemption. I would not be present in my freedom. I would not be present in my love. I would not be present in my gratitude. And I would not be present in my intentions if I did not have the process of redemption, the process of accountability. And these things were introduced to me at Victim Impact. And I'll forever be grateful because today I stand before you a proud business owner. I'm a mentor, a motivational speaker, a personal trainer, and I just help and I love being present with people. Any opportunity that I have. But none of that can compare to the blessing of being a new father. 3 months ago, I was blessed with Elias, Hassan, and Baker May in my life. They tell you all about deep love. I think about my son in the world now and not wanting to have him to ever experience anything that I ever did to anybody, or what a lot of the people I knew did to people. The people I love in my life now. I could never imagine them experiencing what I did to other people. To sit with people and be present, to speak to their worth, to connect to people in heart is one of the greatest gifts that I have next to my son. Life is amazing right now. Life is beautiful. Life is unbelievable. I have the opportunity to give him the best and greatest parts of me. It was not about me, being the victim of circumstance. That I had the opportunity to take my circumstances and use them to not just give of myself to the people that I love, but to give to my surroundings, the best of me if I had to be here in life. Every step mattered because it brought me to where I am. So I can't appreciate just the good parts, because they made the whole now. My man, I love you, my man. I am forever grateful to Victim Impact because it connected me to my humanity. It connected me to my empathy. It connected me to my compassion. It connected me to me.